The Rise of Socialism: Key Figures and Elements. Narrated by Ryan Scoot. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels were two philosophers who captured and codified the basic concepts of communism, of a form of government that treated everyone equally. How did they think problems with capitalism would be alleviated? They believed that the working class was deprived of the fair share of those at the top, who saw most of the profits while doing less. They thought in a more equal distribution of labor and profits form labor, that every citizen works however much they can, honestly, and are willing to work. Marx quoted, "From each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs." This phrase means every citizen works however much they can, honestly work, and succeed. The social change comes incrementally or suddenly through revolution. I think with revolutionary change, it could abruptly alter the structure of everyday living, and I believe if incremental changes were made over a period of years, people are a lot more likely to go for it. How did the ideas of Marx and Engels influence Lenin? Karl Marx created the idea of communism, and upon reading the Communist Manifesto, Lenin was inspired to bring communism to Russia. During a time many would embrace it, due to enduring suffering and poverty. Lenin was Russia's most exuberant workaholic in a country that didn't have a good work ethics, and created the first socialist state. Why did the revolution take place in Russia first, instead of a more industrialized nation? Marx predicted a revolution would take place in a heavily industrialized country like Germany or England. Heavy industry is what created capitalism, and its inherent class struggle between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. An agrarian economy like Russia's at the time, the two classes were not drawn distinctly enough to create enough impetus for the workers to revolt. The Russian Revolution was driven by politics, whereas Marx predicted a revolution driven by economics. When Lenin's older brother was executed for plotting an assassination of Alexander III, he thought and concluded that he needed to establish a new social system for Russia, and needed to toughen themselves as heroes. Especially during the Great War in 1914, Russia had the hardest inflation. In 1917, a group of soldiers and the emperor was advocated, and power fell into provisional government. Land was being seized by peasants, and Lenin had to order bank robberies to finance his political campaigning. He believed through education and legislation, you can make people not want things. The negative human consequences of a command economy versus a free market economy. Negative effects of a command economy is one in which a government makes all or most of the economic decisions of the marketplace and owns all or most of the property, especially all large commercial and industrial property. Generally, communist, socialist, and fascist countries are run as command economies. In a free market, It is a term in economics that refers to an economy operating with little to no interference on the part of a government. The central pillar of free market economy is voluntary exchanges without the use of any kind of coercion or violence. Free markets are largely dependent on the process of supply and demand, where prices are determined by the amount of the product in the market as well as the number of consumers who wish to purchase that product. Unions. The Union was the first to trace an outline, lessons above all others, the working man needed to learn, and that is the collective interest and welfare of his or her class, in which his own, and that no vital or permanent change of conditions is possible if they do not embrace his class as a whole. They used strikes and boycotts to fight for better pay and benefits, rather than taking political action to create a new system. Labor movements. The labor movement of modern times is the product of past ages in pursuit of a worldwide mission of emancipation, and they supported common ownership. It embraces socialism, and that common power was owned socially and was society's most productive power. The Socialist Political Party. The Socialist Party is the name of several different political parties around the world that are explicitly called socialist. All of these parties claim to uphold socialism, though they might belong to different branches of the socialist movement, and might therefore have different interpretations of what socialism means. Most of these parties advocate social democracy, democratic socialism, or even third way as their ideological position. Will socialism ever succeed? When government takes all the reward away, no one will even try or want to succeed. A country's standard of living depends on its ability to produce goods and services, and this cannot happen without capitalism. I will have to admit that pure socialism will never work. In conclusion, socialism was man's most ambitious attempt to replace religion with a doctrine claiming to ground itself in science. Indeed, no religion ever spreaded so far so fast. Yet while socialism had established itself as a fact of life by the beginning of the 20th century, it did not create societies of abundance or give birth to the new man. Each failure inspired new searches for the path to the promised land. Revolution, communes, social democracy, communism, fascism, and third world socialism, none ever worked, and some exacted staggering human tolls. This movement tried to turn the world upside down, and for some time succeeded.